So one of the things that you saw on Sunday and what I've been sharing with you over the past few weeks is this whole vGroups thing. And I've shared with some of you guys kind of what is happening. And some of you asked some really good questions. And so what I wanted to do is go into a little bit of what we're going to be talking about over the next 5 weeks. And so number one, what are vGroups? What is vGroups? vGroups is replacing our community groups. Now, what that means is not like this is some new ministry idea and there's going to be so many different things that are different. And, it's going to be, instead of in the evenings, it's going to be in the mornings. You guys have to have community group from 6 a.m. to like 7:30 a.m. That's not what that means. There's a specific reason that there's a name change, because there's some things that we're wanting to alter and adjust as we move forward. And so one of the reasons we changed the names is just to give it something new. And so moving from what we've been talking about for several years now with community groups to calling them vGroups. One of the other reasons that I've found, particularly with people that are local in this area, in this city, is that when you talk about community groups, for someone that grew up here, they have family, they have friends, they already have community. And so when you think about them wanting to join a community group, they don't quite understand why in the world they would need to join that other community. And so changing it just to vGroups, no one has a vGroup unless you're at Vintage. And so the idea of that is for them to help them see the need for biblical community in their life, which we just simply call vGroups at Vintage. And so why did we change the name? Why are we spending 5 weeks on this in our sermon series on Sunday morning, and why are we making a big deal out of it? There are really 2 reasons that I really want to talk about. One of those is a loss of unified purpose. And so I think this is something, if you remember back in March when we met last, I think this was something that I might have shared, but if I have a feeling that if I lined all of you up and I asked you, why do we do community groups? Every single one of you would have a different answer. Now, there's a good chance that some of the answers would kind of overlap, but for the most part, they would all be different. And what I came to realize as I was processing and assessing why, what's the status and health of our groups and how are we doing and why do we do what we do, I came to this personal realization that I don't even know why we do community groups. That I don't really know. I couldn't sit down and tell you this is why we do what we do. And so one of the worst answers that we can ever say is just, well, why do we do community groups? Well, that's just what we do. That's not a good answer for anything that we ever do, because we want to be unified around a purpose. We want to know why we do what we do. And so part of the reason we're making this shift and this adjustment is because we did lose some unified purpose behind groups. The second reason is that we want to reprioritize the importance of groups at Vintage. And so one of the things that I want to see more of, that I want to promote, that all of us as pastors and staff want to do a whole lot more of, is make a much bigger deal out of community groups. And, vGroups, sorry. That's one of those, if I need like a zapper. And so one of the things that we came to this realization about is that group life at Vintage isn't important enough. And so in this shift, in this series, one of the things that we're talking a lot about is the significance and importance of community. And for Vintage, one of the primary ways that community is going to be played out is through vGroups. And so I'm going to share a little bit more about the significance of community at the end of tonight when I give you guys a little bit of a challenge. But those are really the 2 significant things. It was about the fact that we had kind of had a loss of a unified vision or purpose for groups, and then secondly, to reprioritize these and to make these a significant part of why we do what we do at Vintage Church. So that's kind of the why of groups. I want to kind of walk through the second thing, or the one thing that you see there is the 5-week series. That's the first thing on that sheet. And so just to give you guys an idea of the direction that we're going over the next few weeks. This Sunday, we're going to be on Follow. And this is going to be from Matthew 4. This is actually a sermon that Pastor Rob preached via video for us before he left. And so I asked him, I wanted him to be able to kick this series off and to start it for us. And so he has a short sermon for us on Sunday. And then myself and then Pastor Brick will be coming up at the end to really talk more about vGroups. And so that'll be the first sermon. The next week, we're talking about transform. And so I'm going to walk through what all of these things mean, particularly those middle three, transform, connect, and multiply. And so we'll be talking about transform. I'll be preaching in Jefferson. Pastor Brick will be in Orleans. The third week, we're talking about connect. And we're really excited. That week, we're going to have our two campus hosts preaching. And so Matthew Weaver will be preaching out in Jefferson. John McCann will be preaching out here. The fourth week is multiply. And then Pastor Brick and myself will be preaching that one. I'll be out here actually for that week. Pastor Brick will be in Jefferson. And then the last week is change. And that will be me in Jefferson and Pastor Brick in Orleans. And I hope you see what I wanted to do in this series is kind of walk through Jesus and the early church. So we literally hit Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Acts, the first 5 books of the New Testament. And what I want us to see in this series is what does Jesus have to say and what does the early church have to model for us in regards to community. To be able to see that, and then what does that look like? What can we learn from Jesus in the early church? And then how can we then apply that to us at Vintage Church through our vGroups? And so that's going to be happening over these next 5 weeks. I'm going to share something else that's really important there at the end about an event in the end of July. The second thing that you have there are what are vGroups. And this is a very basic definition that we're kind of getting around. We want it to be basic and we want it to be simple but leave enough room for a ton of flexibility. Because the last thing that I want to do, or any of us want to do, is kind of box you guys in as leaders to say this is only what a group can look like, or this is only what you can do. But this is the basic definition. vGroups are small groups of 10 to 20 people who meet regularly throughout the city for transformation, connection, and multiplication. So one of the things there is we're really trying to promote small groups. We're talking about meeting regularly. And what that means is some of our groups meet weekly. We recognize that some of our groups don't meet weekly. Some of them meet every other week, depending on schedules and that kind of thing. But people are meeting regularly. And then the 3 things that we're really emphasizing in our vGroups, that we're emphasizing in this series, is transformation, connection, and multiplication. And those are going to be 3 very significant elements that we talk a lot about. When we talk about, to get around that unified purpose, why do vGroups exist? Those are the 3 words: transformation, connection, and multiplication. Transformation, connection, and multiplication. And we're going to look at that in just a little bit. You can see at the very bottom there, this is kind of a diagram for you to understand what this looks like. And so there's a reason it's a Venn diagram, if you guys are familiar. I'm not that creative. This is just one of those things that people have used, but it makes a ton of sense for transformation, connection, and multiplication because we believe that all of these things are happening, but they're connected. And so sometimes you're going to find transformation happening because connections happen, or multiplication happening because transformation's happening. And so you're going to see how these things are interconnected with one another. But what you see there in each of those things, that top circle is transformation. That top circle is transformation. And so we believe that transformation is best going to happen through Scripture and prayer. Second, the circle to your left is is connection. We believe that connection is going to happen through relationships and care. I'm going to walk through these briefly with you. And then the circle on the right is multiplication. We believe multiplication is going to happen through outreach and sending. So this gives you an idea to at least wrap your mind around kind of what we're talking about when we say we want vGroups to be about transformation, connection, and multiplication. Flip over your page. And this is where I've left you guys some space to write, because this is where I really want to give you a little more meat in regards to what does transformation, connection, and multiplication look like. And so one of the things as I was processing, thinking about transformation, is that I want our vGroups to be about holistic life change. Holistic life change. And so for me, the best word that pictures that idea is transformation. And so for some people, that holistic life change might be salvation. I'm praying that there are some people in your groups, or people that are going to be coming into your groups that don't know Jesus, through your vGroup are going to be transformed by the gospel. But I also believe at the same time that there are people in your groups that are believers that are being sanctified and growing because of your group. I'm praying that through vGroups, marriages are being restored. People are being freed of sin. Those sorts of life-changing things. And we're going to talk about this earlier. That's not me putting a ton of weight on you, that you as that leader need to be a part of that. That's how much weight and importance I believe relationships are. In not just in vintage, but in life in general, especially within the Christian life. So this transformation is a holistic life change. I want to see people's lives transformed because they're a part of vGroups. The two ways that I think this is going to happen best is through Scripture and prayer. Now, when I talk about Scripture, one of the things that we're really trying to clarify for people and have people understand is I'm not necessarily talking about an in-depth Bible study. So some people that come to Vintage, when they come to a community group, or now going to be vGroups, what they think that they're going to experience is an in-depth exegetical Bible study where we walk verse by verse by verse. And that's not the goal of what we do with Scripture at vGroups. I do believe that we need to be opening our Bibles and reading Scripture together. But I want that to be a Scripture-based discussion more than anything. I want questions to be asked and conversation to be happening based on the questions that are based on Scripture. A lot of that is going to be, like we've always done, through sermon-based stuff. But one of the things that, so you guys know that's on your radar, one of the things that we're trying to work in is to create some space in the year to be able to offer some other studies that if you guys wanted to go through something on marriage, finances, whatever the topic might be, that would be available for you at certain times in the year. So that's the thing with Scripture. The second one is prayer. I'm hoping that transformation's happening in your groups through prayer, that you guys are praying for one another in group, but not just that prayer is reaching outside of group. And so when you say you're actually praying for one another during the week, you're actually praying for one another. You're actually caring for one another. You're praying and asking the Lord to answer prayer and change lives. And so that transformation is that holistic life change that I think is best going to happen through Scripture and prayer. The second one is connection. So vGroups exist for transformation and then connection. And connection is really important because this is one of the things, there's this weird tension in group life, is that there's one of two people typically. On one side, and this could be someone that's either that they don't know Jesus or they're unfamiliar with the church, and so we talk about them, building relationships and getting into community, and they're just kind of like, I'm not so sure I want to go to a group of 15 strangers and start telling them my deepest, darkest secrets, right? No one's like that. No human being is like that, where they're willing to walk into a room and just spill everything. On the flip side, I don't want people thinking that that's what our groups are necessarily for. And the reason I say that is because of what I believe. When you get a group of 10 to 15 to 20 people together, there's just not going to be that kind of transparency. Now, here's what I do believe can happen in our groups through connection is friendship. I believe that relationships can be built with a group of 10 to 20 people where deep friendships are formed. And here's what I believe that can flow out of those friendships. Those transparent, honest conversations and relationships with other people. So I do want to see out of our V groups, we call them and we talk about them every once in a while. We're going to be doing a lot more with them in the future, life groups. I want to see groups of 3 to 4 men and women meeting to pray for one another, to hold each other accountable, to be transparent with one another. I think that should flow out of V groups. But I don't think that should be an expectation of the whole group, 10 to 20 people together. So that's what I mean when I mean by connection. And so we want to see that happen through 2 things, relationships and care. Relationships are easy. That's just that friendship element. Just, are you building relationships with other people? And then the second thing is care. And care is, for me, it's kind of a holistic term that could mean a multitude of things. If someone needs a meal in your group, or someone needs prayer, or someone needs accountability, what is that way in which you can care for that person? The last one is multiplication. Multiplication. I don't think I have to share a lot about that. We talk at Vintage all the time about multiplication, that Vintage Church exists for gospel multiplication. And so one of the things that I really want to see in the life of our groups is healthy multiplication. I want to see more groups multiply. And so the way that we want to see that happen is in 2 ways, outreach and sending. Outreach is that kind of mission arm. I want to see a lot more, and we're going to help facilitate and arm you guys with this, but a lot more groups serving in our city, doing things with people in need in our city, serving people that need help. So that's part of that outreach element. And that's not just here in New Orleans. That's also all around the world. We have a really cool opportunity that Pastor Brick will share more about in the future with some schools in Jefferson Parish where we're going to be able to serve them. And so that's just one way that we're trying to open up some doors for that. The other thing is sending, and this is for us multiplying groups. I want to see more groups multiplied, and I want to see that done in a healthy way. And so I want to open up more avenues to have more leaders and to include more people in groups and inspire more people to be a part of groups as well as want to lead groups. And so when we talk about V groups, those are the 3 things: transformation, connection, and multiplication. And so you guys are going to be hearing a ton more about that in the future. I want to share goals that I have for this series. This isn't on your sheet, so if you want to write them there, you can. But these are 4 things that I want to see happen in this series for you to be praying for and hopefully moving in that direction as well. Number 1, I want people to understand the importance of biblical community. I want people to recognize that they cannot do life alone. That if they try to live life, whether they're lost or they're saved, in isolation, they're never going to make it. And the reason is we just simply weren't created for that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I do want in this series to relaunch our V groups with excitement and purpose. I want people to be excited about V groups, to be a part of them, to join them, and I also want them to recognize and understand what the purpose is of our V groups. The third thing is very simply, I want to encourage people to join V groups. I hope over the next 5 weeks, your guys' groups are flooded with new people, and they're engaging and connecting with that. And then the last thing is this, and this is something that's a big deal for me, is I want to inspire people to lead V groups. And so over the past few years, and I'm more responsible for this than anybody else. Over the past few years, we have made leading a community group like, you have to be a mini pastor. We've actually used that language at times. And for some people, that just freaks them out. It's too much. It's too overwhelming. And there is a reality that being a group leader, there is some responsibility. There's a level at which there's more to it than just not doing anything. But at the same time, I want to inspire more people to want to lead. And so we've done little things. If you ever filled out the community group leader application online before like a month ago, I'm sorry, because it was intense. If you filled it out in the past month, you're welcome, because it's been significantly altered, and there's a reason for that. And so there are three things I want to encourage you guys in this, because as you are a vGroups leader, I want you to be looking for these three things in people. These are the three things for someone that's wants to lead a vGroup, or could potentially be a group's leader. These are the three things that I'm looking for. Number one, spiritual velocity. Spiritual velocity. Now, what I mean by that is that people are moving towards Jesus. So they're on the journey. They're growing in their faith. I'm not looking for someone who's perfect or anything like that. I'm looking for someone who is growing. The second thing is teachability. I want someone to be a group's leader who can be taught, who is willing to learn and listen and grow in that. And then the last one is this, relational intelligence. There is a reality, because vGroups are so relational, that you have to understand how to deal with people and how to have that relational intelligence to be able to have conversations and handle relationships and those sorts of things. So as we move forward, that's one of the things that I really I'm challenging myself in. I want to challenge you guys in is, what does it look like to be a group leader? How can we inspire more people to be groups leaders with those three things? Not to lower the bar so much that anybody and everybody can, but to be realistic, to inspire more people to lead. And so those are the things in regards to that. The last thing that I want to share with you before we go into some table discussion is that vGroups relaunch party. And I want you guys to make this is going to be a big deal, and I want you to make it a priority for you to be there, but not just for you, also your group. Wednesday, July 27th, from 6:30 to 8:30 at V Jefferson, we are having a vGroups relaunch party. Now, this is really important. I'm not putting this thing on because I'm lame and boring and not fun. I know this. It's okay. I have my own fun. But I've got some people that I've instilled in this and said, I want you to take it and run with it. This is going to be a fun night. And so we're really hoping this night, this event is going to be a fun night where it's exciting, where people are energized, where people are engaging about groups. And so it's going to be from 6:30 to 8:30. There's really two things that I want to see happen at this relaunch party. One of those things is I want to see people get excited about our vGroups. The second thing is I want people to engage and connect with vGroups. And so one of the ways that you guys are going to be able to help with this, that I want you to take back to your group, is at this party, we're going to have like tables set up for every vGroup. And you guys are going to be able to represent your vGroup and have people, if they're interested in connecting with the group, come around and meet you guys. And so you can do whatever you want. I mean, you can be as festive as you want. We're going to do food, and we'll probably be reaching out to you guys. Maybe if you want to make one dish that your group makes, or a dessert or something like that, to have it at your table. But we want you guys to be visible so other people can meet you and other people can get information about your groups to be able to connect with your group. So that's coming Wednesday, July 27th. Put it in your calendars. Tell your community groups. We're going to be or your vGroups. Man, this is going to take me 5 weeks to detox myself. But over these 5 weeks, we're going to be sharing about this vGroups launch party. And so it's a really big deal. We want to see a lot of people come out. We want to see people get excited and connect with our vGroups. The last thing that I want to do, and this is real brief, but I really want to encourage you with some stuff at the very bottom of that sheet on the back page. And it's some stuff that I've been processing, and some things that have kind of come out of my time processing groups that I really want to encourage you guys in. All of you are here, whether you want to be or not, because you're a leader. Even if you're here and you don't think you're a leader, you are a leader. I wouldn't invite you to this if you weren't. And so we believe in you. We want to invest in you, and our groups, the strength and the impact that our groups can have rest on not only on my shoulders, but on your guys' shoulders. And that's not like a weight to say, I hope you can do it, but to say that I believe that you can do it. And so what I want to challenge you in is three things, and really the first two are the ones that I really want to talk about with you, to encourage you, to get you thinking about it. And so there's a book out there, it's called Real Life Discipleship. If you guys don't know, just real quick, if you don't know, we do have at our Jefferson location and our Orleans location groups leaders. And I hope you know them. Now, Nick Perrette serves as our Jefferson groups leader. Nick, you stand up and raise your hand. And there's Nick. And then Danny Curry serves as our Orleans location leader. So these gentlemen, wow. These gentlemen, we were going to try and use this recording, Mark. That's over. No, I'm kidding. These two gentlemen are trying to come alongside me and help you. But we're walking through a book called Real Life Discipleship, and it's a great resource that I'd encourage you guys to pick up. But there are three things that the book talks about that are essentials to making disciples. And the reason I bring this up, because that's ultimately what we're about. Because we want to make disciples. We call it gospel multiplication at Vintage, but that's what it is. And we believe that the greatest avenue, the greatest place for that to happen is in our vGroups. And so there are three elements that real life discipleship talks about that are essential to making disciples. And I think they're true, and this is what I want to encourage you with. The first one is this: intentional leaders. Intentional leaders. What's an intentional leader? This is the two things that they say that make someone an intentional leader. Number one, someone who leads by example. And number two, someone who explains how others can improve and win in their Christian faith. So basically what that means is someone who's leading by example, who's living out their life. And then second, someone who can walk with somebody and show them how to be a Christian. And I really do believe that if you would just take whatever you're doing and add more intentionality to it, it will go to another level. And so I want to encourage you, every group in this room is absolutely, completely different. You have, what makes your groups different is the types of people and who you have in your groups. But I want you to think about this. In what ways can you be more intentional as a vGroup leader? What ways can you be more intentional as a vGroup leader? And then take those steps to be more intentional, whatever it might be, whether it's I need to send that text message, or I need to do this, or I need to spend a little more time preparing for our discussion, whatever it might be. What do you need to do to be more intentional? The second thing that they talk about, these keys to making disciples, is this: relational environments. So intentional leaders, relational environments. And this is the other one that I think is so crucial, is that if we want to make disciples, the greatest way to do that is not for someone to be on stage, not someone that's doing a lot of teaching, but it's about being in relationship. The reason we talk about transformation in vGroups is because I believe the greatest transformation can happen when people are in relationships. And so where discipleship is going to happen is in relational environments. That, for us, that is our vGroups. And so why this is so important for you guys is that we need, all of us, to be intentional leaders because we have relational environments in which we can make disciples. And so my goal is not, when we talk about gospel multiplication and growing the church, my goal is not to have a room full of all kinds of people that are just coming to hear. My goal is to gather people to hear Jesus, to be saved by Jesus, then to grow into Jesus, to invite and bring in more people, that they might do the same thing over and over and over again. And these relational environments are key. You know why we need more groups? Because more people need to be changed by Jesus. And so if we can get more people in relational environments, they will experience transformation, connection, and multiplication, and their lives will be changed. And so I want to encourage you guys in that, to be intentional leaders, to focus on these relational environments, this group that you have that you're helping oversee, because it's so critical and so crucial to this disciple-making process. The last one is something that I'm processing and working on that I'm going to be sharing more with you in the future, and it's a reproducible process. A reproducible process. So what can we and what can I, as your equipping pastor, put before you to help you be more intentional in disciple-making, in leading a V group? And I'm going to be sharing more with you in the coming future about that. But I really want you to focus on those first two, intentional leaders and relational environments. How can you focus on those and make those a priority in your life?